welcome to les mardis du CEPREPA. My name is Hossein Saï. I'm a former student at the CEPREPA. I'm also artistic director of the Fayaka Institute of Knowledge and Art Research, also known as FICA. So tonight I have the great pleasure to present Hélène Mutter, who is a French visual artist, actually based in Saudi Arabia. And Hélène is also a doctor in art and art sciences, and an academic researcher. So in 2020, is the sound okay?
Yes.
Just to make sure, okay, thank you. In 2020, she obtained a PhD thesis entitled War and Image Challenges, Art and Visual Devices, awarded by the Marie-Antoinette von Hulle Prize of the Faculty of Philosophy and Social Sciences of the Free University.
Is it working?
I'm trying again. So yes, so I was saying Social Sciences of the Free University of Brussels in 2022. Maybe we'll try without, but I don't speak very loud. So if you don't hear me, just make a little sign and I will try my best. So our previous accomplishments include being a laureate of various awards and grants. Our work has been exhibited in France, Luxembourg, Morocco, Saudi Arabia, Lebanon, and recognized by organizations like the Centre Pompidou in France, and the Ministry of the French Community of the Wallonia-Brussels Federation. For 2024, Hélène was awarded a postdoctoral scholarship at the CEPREPA, but is also currently taking or ongoing a residency in FICA on Fayaka Island, where she is continuing a long-time project which combines the production of a photo series and a creative documentary across France, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and Iraq. So tonight the program will be slightly different than the usual Mardi du CEPREPA, because Hélène will be presenting for approximately 20 to 25 minutes of research, and then we will discuss for approximately 15 minutes together some specific aspects of our research and our work, and then we will open the discussion with everyone in the room. So Hélène, thank you very much for being here tonight, and I will give you the room. And
It works.
Yes.
It works. I put it. Okay, so good evening everyone, and thank you very much, Hossein, for the presentation. Thank you for welcoming me in at FICA and during the residency program, and also thank you very much to the CEPREPA, and thank you to Makram Abbas for welcoming me this year for this postdoctoral scholarship. So tonight we will talk about the Gulf War from a visual point of view, and yes, as Hossein presented in this introduction, I work in this topic. I work on this topic for almost 15 years now. I started in 2009, so it was a long time ago, and this very big project and adventure started when I was a student in my first French art school during my bachelor degree, and I was in holidays in my parents' house, and I discovered boxes with military archives, which belonged to my father, who was a former military officer during the Gulf War in the French Air Forces. And when I opened this box, I was faced to a lot of archive and a lot of military archive, mainly images produced by military engineering and specifically by fights plane during the war. And it was a kind of shock to be faced to these images, because I was only 20 years old, and I was at the beginning of my artistic studies, and I was thinking at this time, what can I do? What can I do with these documents? So this is an example of the archive I found in these boxes, and I was facing hundreds and thousand images were very similar from one to another. So this is the very, very first starting point of this project, and then the second point, it's related to the very intimate and personal dimension to this project, because these pictures, my mother showed me this picture when I was very, very young, and it's a picture of my father in the Gulf during the war, and it's a report who was published in Paris Match magazine, French magazine, on the 7th of February 1991. And I remember that my father and my mother told me when I was young, who is in this picture, who is in this picture, and I said, yeah, it's Daddy on this picture. And I just noticed when I grew up that it was a picture taken during this war. So this project is also something very intimate for me, and the biographical dimension is very, very important and very present. So this project is divided into different phases of work. The first one is called Reconnaissance. It's all the projects and the researches I conducted in France, and based on all this archive between 2009 and 2019. It was also the main thematic and the title of my PhD thesis exhibition. And then we have another part of the project related to the field work, because at the end of my PhD, I realized that I would like to improve and to go deeper in my researches on the Gulf War. And I started a field work between Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and Iraq. Well, I started to organize a field work in between these three countries, because the main point for me through this project in both research and creation approach is to propose another look on this conflict, but also to propose mainly another look on how we can see and how we can perceive and represent war and conflict today by crossing the different point of view and all the parties involved in this conflict. So the chapter 1, personal images of war, is related to the field work conducted in Saudi Arabia and starting in 2022. The second chapter, it's At the Dawn of Darkness, is related to the field research conducted in Kuwait, and especially started in Falaka Island in the past few days. I just came back today from the island. And then later, maybe in 25, 26, I will have the chance to pursue it and to finalize this work with the Iraq chapter entitled Under the Blind Suns. So to start with Prelude, Reconnaissance, and to contextualize a little bit all my research. So all the starting point of this part was this picture especially, and following this picture, also when I discovered the archive in my parents' house in 2009, I asked a few days ago, when I came back home, I just asked my father to write me a text to explain and to tell the story from his point of view about the war, because before discovering these documents, I've never asked my father what he does on the field, and what happens for him, and what happens during this conflict. So he wrote me a text, very, very intimate, and explaining all the phases of the war from the very beginning, why this conflict started, and all his experience as an officer, a French officer in the battlefield, because the role of my father was to analyze images of the war, and all the images produced by plane and by the fighter plane. He was working with the photographer in direct link with the photographer, and he was preparing all the mission of the French fight plane during this war. That's why I have a lot of pics related to this very part of the war, because at the end of the conflict, he just bring and kept other testimonies for him, all these documents. So this document, this picture especially, are very, very, from my point of view, are very, very strong testimony about the French involvement, and more from a general point of view about the international coalition, because all these documents were shared between the different countries inside the international coalitions. And I've noticed several things on these pictures. I also asked a lot of questions to my father because I was unable to understand this visual and these very strange materials. And we can notice that on the just above the not above, en bas, the pictures, we have some references with the dates, with geographical coordinates. And one of my very first projects was to work on with these geographical coordinates to see through Google Earth software where the coalition bombed, and what in specific places between Iraq and Kuwait, where it was mainly in the desert, but I was really interested to situate more precisely the specific emplacement of the bomb and of the site. So I've created a small map with the 5 points related to the 5 images just I've shown you before. So it's related to the first one on the left. It's bridges bombed in Iraq, and on the right it's a site bombed in Kuwait. And also for these 3 pics, it's a picture well taken above the Kuwait territory. And thus this is the archive I've produced through Google Earth software. It's a series of 92 photographs, but only 88 exhibited, and I've just register and print all the archive produced by Google Earth software in 2016, because I've made this project in 2016. And at this moment, related to the 5 places I've shown you earlier, it's all the pictures taken by the software. So the intention of this process of work was to create my own archive and my own visual related to these 5 specific sites. So this is a view of the exhibition of my PhD thesis, and these images were showcased and displayed face to this showcase of personal archive, where you can see some different sources of archive, as the report of Paris Match magazine, the text written by my father, and all this archive related to the previous projects. And this project was created in 2014 when I was it was during my master's degree. So when I started to work with this archive, I little by little involved all these documents more and more in my artistic practice. And at this moment, I worked a lot of construction site. I was a little bit obsessed by the duality between construction and destruction, and so I always took a lot of pictures about construction site around me, and I've noticed that maybe this link between destruction and construction was also very connected to war. So when I made this project, it was also related to another installation with very big concrete artworks, and I've decided to recreate through the superposition of the images, the archive of war, and this photo engraving on polished steel like little theater of war, to put a main focus on these, again, territories. This project is a project I realized during my PhD thesis. I called it ETA. It's a series of 26 photographs on spectroscopic glass plates. It was a project realized in partnership with the Observatory of Brussels. I work on a laboratory of digitization of archive from the sky. So I've created a link between the aerial view and the glass plates used to which serve to photograph and to take pictures from the sky. So it was a link between this point of view, very particular in this archive, and also the point of view of the sky. So it was kind of duality between the ground, the point of view from the ground, and the point of view from the sky. And yeah, so this is the view of the exhibition of my PhD thesis in a small gallery in Brussels. And the particularity of the PhD in art and art sciences, it's as it is a research and creation process of work, so it's a back and forth, a permanent back and forth between theoretical thinking and thought. I was a student at the university, and at the same time I was a student at the Academy of Fine Arts. So for the defense of my thesis, I've organized an exhibition, and so I defended my thesis in the gallery, directly in the gallery. This is the first layout of my PhD thesis publication, which is still ongoing, and hopefully it will be edited and published next year. And then concerning the field work, the process of work is the same in the countries I'm working in, and so for this first chapter in Saudi Arabia, I started to work there in 2022 during a residency program in Jeddah called Al Balad Residency Program. It was a program led by the Ministry of Culture and Affairs Gallery. And it was a very great opportunity for me to start my field research and my field work in Saudi Arabia. And I've decided to go in different places in the country, very related and connected to this war. So, for example, first of all, in Jeddah there is a specific area called Al Islam Building, and it's like a small city in the city, and it was an area where refugee Kuwaiti were housed during the war. And I've decided for my field work and my field research for this project work with military technology, the black and white infrared photography, and also the other part of the project is the creation of a documentary related to the foreign country where I conducted my project. And so I go on the places and which are connected to the memory and the history of the Gulf War, and I take a series of photography with this technique. And so this is the result of the building. This is a personal documentation. I always have the same process of work. First, I made some researches on Google Earth to investigate the area I want to work in, and then I go in the places. My first step is to create and to have a lot of documentation and personal documentation, and then I start the creation phase of the project. Another site I visited in Saudi is the Yanbu Harbor, and Yanbu Harbor, it's an important point for me because it was through this city that a part of the French troop came from France through the Red Sea, and they stay for a few days in the Yanbu harbor before going in different military bases in the country in Saudi, and especially in the north of the country. And so this is my studio work during the program in Al-Balad residency and the showcase of the work. It was between March and April 2022. And more recently, so I have the chance to live now and to work in Saudi Arabia for 1 year, so this is much easy for me to continue my research. And this year I went to Al-Aqsa in the east of Saudi at 4 hours by car from Riyadh. Al-Aqsa, it was a very important point for me because it was the place where my father was based during the war, and where the main French aerial forces were based, and especially during the first phase of fight, when the war starting during the night of 16 and 17 of January 91. So I spent 2 days in the area of the Al-Aqsa airport just to investigate also the landscape and to recreate another part of this main puzzle of my work. And I also went to Saad Desert. The Saad Desert is on the road between Riyadh and Al-Aqsa. And then more recently, in July, I went to Toulon Harbor. Toulon, it's a city in the south of France, and it's very famous because the harbor is a military harbor. So it was from this city that the French troop came to Mali. So going back in France and taken some pics in this harbor was also an important connection for me, because it was a manner also to loop all this research is conducted in 22 and in 24. And this is other places in Saudi, as the Irka Hospital in Riyadh. Irka Hospital was, as the Air School building in Jeddah, it was Irka Hospital. It's an abandoned building, and which housed Kuwaiti refugees also during the war. And this is a knife school, and the knife school was bombed by an Iraqi missile during the war. And then a few days ago I had the chance to start the chapter 2 of this project in the frame of my residency in Felaka Island. It's a very challenging part of the project, because everything was organized very fast, and I didn't know a few months ago that I will have the chance to go in Kuwait this year to pursue my research. And also because the only elements and the only archive I had from Kuwait and the only images I had from this country was images taken by my father at the end of the war in March 91, when he went in between Riyadh and between Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, when he took this very famous road, like Apocalypse Now road, just at the end of the war. And this is the only images I had concerning the Kuwait part of this conflict. And so I started to explore a little bit the map of Kuwait and the specific sites related to this conflict. And when I arrived in Felaka, it was a lot of emotion, also because I spent a lot of times, obviously, in the ruins and all these houses abandoned since the end of the war. And I have collected raw materials belonging to mainly kids, and I have bring some here if you want to see. And it's I spent really 4 days by taking a lot of pictures, trying to understand what I was facing to, because it was the first time that I was really faced to tangible traces and memory of this conflict. And I guess this is a very, very good thing, because I think it will permit me to bring maybe more humanity and another personal dimension in this conflict, not related to me, but related to the people who were invited at this moment. And maybe I can stop now so we can have a small conversation.
Thank you. Okay, so I don't think it's working, so we'll just drop it. So first of all, thank you again, thank you very much for your presentation. We will just, as I mentioned earlier, but for anyone who might have missed it, we will have a very short discussion, Hélène and I. They will go into specific details of research and this project, and then we will let you ask her all the questions that you wish or missed. My first question is quite one that is by curiosity, but when we were listening to you, I think everyone understood that this discovery of the familial military archive had a very strong influence in your life, and almost was the beginning of a lifetime project. So what are you doing as an artist before you stumble upon those archives? What was
I first started when I was a kid. I was drawing and painting a lot. Actually, I was one of my grandmother learning me to paint, and I was drawing every day. And then during my high school, I started to already collected materials as paper, newspaper, and to create some collage with painting and different images. So I was mainly focused. I was very influenced by pop art movement. And then when I started my art school, the first one, I was a sculptor. I became a sculptor, and working with very raw materials but very strong as concrete, as pieces of wood, pieces of ceramic, and it was more a very conceptual approach, but very related to destruction. And as I said earlier, I was trying to find a good balance between the representation of construction and the representation of destruction. And so I just through my sculpture, I recreated like construction site environment, and then this picture started to come little by little, and now it's my focus on images related to war, and it's especially from the military field.
But also there is something that is quite important in your work, is that you do focus on the power of the image, and the Gulf War is usually known as the first live broadcasted TV. So I'm sure a lot of us in the room did not experience that because we're not born. But very often when we speak with older people, they say that at that time the TV were all like full-time, all the time, broadcasting this war. So do you think the Gulf War specifically kind of changed the face of war, and how war is kind of perceived now by like the collective psyche, and how war is being diffused and maybe digested?
I think at this time it changed the way we can see and we can represent the war. If it's still the case today, I don't know. I'm not sure, to be honest. But at this moment, yeah, because it was the first time that the war was broadcasted in live, and it's not a funny thing, but when I spoke about this project to people older than us, all of them said have something to say about the TV screen they remembered at this moment. Said, yeah, I remember when I was a kid, I remember when I was 10, I remember when I was 15. I was in the living room with my parents, and I just remember that a lot of flash and green light were on the TV screen. It was the same images, and during the Gulf War in 2003, conducted by the USA in Iraq. But yeah, I mean, these kind of images, it was the first time that they were published and shared even in the newspaper, and it was the first time that even during I mean, it was published in all the media, and I'm not sure that, but I'm pretty sure that it was the first time that also military documents and military images were published at the same time of the war.
And but one thing, for example, if we look at those images, I think you saw them before. Like, if you don't know what you're looking at, you literally don't know what it is, and so many things. And there is, when you were showing, I think, one of the slides, there is a text that you ask your father to write, and I read a little bit through it, and it's very surprising, because usually when you see the war, it's very, you never know really like what the soldier live like, you know, on a daily basis, what they think, etc. So there is like this little intimate or personal dimension, but then you work with image that once again are so, how to say, they can look neutral, or they're very hard to analyze. So how do you navigate this kind of dimension between the impersonal and the personal? Because your father being a soldier, imagine your perception of war may be a little bit different from someone that, you know, do not have any personal connection to a soldier, to a general.
Yeah, actually it's also a big challenge in this project, because I've never experienced war. I was only 2 during this conflict, so I have absolutely no memories about this time. And talking about a conflict you didn't experience, it's also challenging. And but yeah, it was one of the main topic of my PhD thesis, and one of the main concepts that when you look at these images and aerial view, there is nobody on the picture. I mean, there is no human presence in the pictures on the ground, but there is also no human presence behind the picture, because it was taken by a plane. And so following your previous question, yes, I think it was also an announcement of the drone wars we are facing today, because the pilot of the drone is very far from, it's close to the screen, but very far from the battlefield. And so yeah, I think also my intention through this project and through all these documents, and as an artist, it's to put in the middle of all these documents, and especially this military documents, the artistic gesture, and how as an artist I can propose another look on this conflict by the manipulation and by another way to show and to broadcast, to exhibit, to showcase this document. And when I said that I want to cross the point of view, it's that also I consider that in a conflict, for example, these images cannot exist without these elements. So this is a back and forth between positions. Yeah. This one or this one, a draw made by a kid, or this is, you can only have a big overview on this conflict, but in all the conflict, if you also mix the different sources of materials.
I think that's one of the projects Hélène didn't show, but it was when you showed the Centre Pompidou.
Yeah.
So in one of our projects called the Military Sunset, Hélène did a very large installation. Can you just show the?
Yeah.
So if you want to say a bit more about it, because I think this dimension is quite well integrated, like the personal soldier point of view versus the very impersonal images that work in produce. And in this project is the one where you had the soldier speaking about the experience of the war, correct?
Yeah. Military Sunset It was a project exhibited in the Pompidou Center in January 23, in part of a festival which was focused on the war in 23 because of the situation in Ukraine also. And I've proposed a very big immersive installation only based on pictures taken by military photographer on the battlefield, and I would like to show a very specific representation of the war or of the training session of the military through the sunsets. And because when I went to the military archive in several military institutions in France, I noticed that all the photographers took pictures of the sunset on the battlefield. So I've made a selection of 26 images from the Gulf War to a Barkhane operation in Mali in 2021. So it was 30 years of conflict where the French military were involved, represented through a video of sunsets. And thanks to this video, it was an installation with headphones, with 15 headphones from the du plafond, from the ceiling. And I've asked some soldiers to give me their point of view on war and their point of view on peace. So I've collected 23 or 24 testimonies, and from all the background, all the different armies, and so when you were faced to this sunset, you were at the same time listening to soldiers talking about war and talking about peace.
And that's when I saw this, I listened to one of your interviews where you said that military sunset is a ceiling. So I went to Google and checked, and indeed there are thousands and thousands of pictures that are taken by military personnel.
In all the but it's very developed in the US, yes. Obviously.
Yeah, because you go with the full imagery. It's always someone that is, we can just see the silhouette, and that is kind of looking away in the sunset. But those people are literally on the military background.
This is, if you take on Google military sunset, you have this kind of images, and there is a lot of items like poster. You can
put in your house.
Yeah, in your room, in your kitchen, and you have mugs, and you have yeah.
But that brings me to another question, because I think through those images, I mean, I don't know what else goes behind it, but there's a certain aestheticization of the full military activity, and I was wondering how in your work you managed to avoid this romanticization or aestheticization of the war, but the war is not perceived anymore as, something that is cruel and something that is violent, but just perceived as something that in the end kind of look nice. So how do you mediate this violence and this aestheticization of the war?
Concerning military sunsets, my intention was absolutely not to talk about the aestheticization of war. First of all, because I was working with pictures I didn't take, and with pictures taken by military photographer. And when I asked them, why did you take the sunsets when you were in this country or this country? Most of them told me, it's because it's the golden hour, and I am a photographer before being a soldier. And so the light is really beautiful, and so yeah, obviously I am a photographer, so I will take the sunsets, even if I am in the battlefield or in a mission or during an operation. It's beautiful, so I will take these pictures. But during this exhibition, so from the journalists, it was not the same point of view. And for them, it was a very big representation of the strength of the. I am a soldier, I am a military, we have guns, and we have so. Even it was not my intention through this project, but I can totally understand that we can think about it when we see these images. I think that from the USA point of view, it's mostly the case because I know that they produced all these goodies and all this. We don't do that in the French army. But to come back to this project, actually it's. From the very first beginning, I didn't ask myself if I was in the direction of giving an aestheticization of the work. But in a sense, these pictures are. We can say that they are. It could be a very beautiful picture, by the way. It could be a very beautiful landscape. It's the paradox of the aerial view also. And when you see the work of Yann Arthus Bertrand, a famous, very French photographer who took pictures from the sky, but very famous places in the world, yes, it's very beautiful, and you can travel all across the world, and even when you go on Google Earth, so it's. I think that there is. Something to take care of when you deal with these documents, but I only consider these documents as military archive, and as informative documents. That's all. I just never think about bring aesthetic or bring.
The dimension, like the aesthetic dimension or something.
Absolutely not.
And that's something I was wondering, because your practice is a little bit specific in the sense that you are as much a researcher as a doctor and in the PhD than an artist. And I was very interested in the articulation between those two dimensions. How do you usually work when you start to have all those documents? Somehow you kind of already started to respond to this question by saying that you're not very interested in the aesthetic dimension, but what are the guiding principles that allow you to articulate the two dimensions?
To be honest, I think that this creative and process started with my PhD. I always did a lot of researches apart my work, but I found another methodology of work and of research with my PhD. And as I said earlier, the particularity of this PhD, it was a permanent back and forth between creation and theoretical approach. But when I started my thesis, I remember that one of my teachers told me the PhD in research and creation, it's not work where the artist comments his own work. So this is also a trap, because you can start to talk about your work and explain. No, and I didn't want to go at least through this approach, and it's a permanent contextualization of my work, and that also it was also important for me when I finished this PhD to think about a field research, because for me this project couldn't be finished and completed without a field research, without continuing.
And this is very interesting, because to work on a subject like war, I think it's might not be like the most accessible subject when you start to look at war site, military site, talking to soldiers. So how do you navigate without being a soldier yourself? Like, how do you navigate? Oh, you did. Maybe that's strong. But how, for example, in Saudi Arabia, or even like in Kuwait, but also in France, when you did the picture of the Port de Toulon, and in Saudi you did like also a lot of pictures. did you have like any specific obstacle? How did you overcome that? But also, did you have like maybe some surprises, things that you had not expected, and that gave you like easy access to the site?
To start with I will start with the beginning in France. Obviously, it was not very difficult for me also to get in touch with soldier or military, because when you have already access to these materials, you have a kind of legitimacy also, you know, to talk about and to be involved in like the military field. And I've contacted some photographers who were involved in the Gulf during the war, and so they gave me a testimony. We are still in contact and we exchange. I've sent them a message saying, yeah, I'm in Kuwait now, and they gave me a lot of advice also in terms of photography, equipment, process. And but yeah, it's not easy. I would say that it's not easy to approach the military people, to let them talk and to have testimony from them. I would say that it's a main difficult point, but also a very good surprise in my work, doing my work in France. Saudi Arabia, it's not easy to approach people, and especially when you talk about sensitive subjects as war. And so I didn't get any particular testimony. I just work by my own and doing my research alone with the support of my my work team. And yeah, it's more a very independent process of work. And in Kuwait, I'm here just for a few days, but I must say that it's a very big surprise, because I already have through social media, and after the publication of this event tonight and of the residency program, some people started to contact me and to send me some testimonies about their childhood in Kuwait City and to tell me their own stories. So this is a very big surprise, and I guess that, yeah, this part of the project will definitely bring a more personal and intimate dimension to this project, for sure.
Well, actually, I was going to ask you the last question, your first impression about Kuwait, and so you just responded to that. So I think maybe we should open the question. Does anyone have a question for Hélène?
I have a lot of documents here. If you want to see, if you want to manipulate it, you can come and yeah.
So I think we have a question.
I do not have a question for today. I just have a brief comment. I would like to thank you for representing my beautiful country, Kuwait. I will tell you, welcome to Kuwait. Yes, war is miserable. It's sad. It's awful, but at least it's history. Thank you for representing a country, Gulf, highlighting some historical events. As a Kuwaiti citizen and French teacher, I'm really proud to assist and view such a beautiful work. There's not too many text information, but too many beautiful images and oral information. So I'd like to thank you one more time, and thank you as well for the questions. And that's it.
Thank you very much.
Just a little note, actually Hélène has a great website with all of our projects and with some text in them and some
mostly in French. Unfortunately, I need to translate all the things. Yeah.
But yeah, so if you want to look, it's helenemutter.com, I think.
Yeah.
You can also see more of our work on our website. Anyone else?
My question would be, with the time that you spent on Failacha, how do you see the project evolving now that you had this experience, and where do you want to take it next?
Yeah, that's a very good question. It's still very fresh in my mind, but I was first of all, very surprised by by the colors of the house and inside, and there is something which is still very present and very deep when you enter these houses. And so I spent really 4 days by exploring and taking a lot of pictures, trying also to understand why I was there and why the things were like that around me, and what's because it's also when you work on war and on the war topic, and when you are a photographer, there is also a lot of cliche, and especially when you are facing ruins and destruction, and so that's why also Fedaka, it's very challenging for me, and I still, I guess, need to find a good balance, as we said earlier, to involve this very, very, very intimate part, because I knew that Kuwait would be the more intimate part of the project. But this is very intense. It was very intense in Fedaka. I really didn't know that it was so much destroyed, and so much at this stage, still 4 years after the end of the conflict. So I'm still processing, but I have few ideas were starting to emerge in my mind, and but yeah, I definitely also will have a part of the project which would be the creation of infrared pictures, because it's like the red line also in terms of creation, but I know that I will also bring something very personal. I still need to find the good way too, but yeah.
So this first trip to Failaka was really research, not even the research, was a bit like the familiarization phase. But Hélène will come back for at least 3 weeks. I think 3 weeks. And then if she needs to come, or she will come again. So that's why this phase was just a discovery, scouting. But it will be an ongoing project, and that's why also we wanted to have this conference tonight, because one of the goals is also to connect with people who can share information, testimonies, any kind of information that can fit into the project.
So if you have any information and testimonies you want to share, with pleasure.
Should we take more questions? Is there any more questions? Of course, you can come also speak to Hélène directly, and there are a lot of documentation.
Yeah, I bring so military archive, but you've seen maybe on the slides the documentation in France, the documentation in Saudi, some tests of prints concerning the infrared photography research. And I also have a document with the image taken by military photographer during the Gulf War, and with the liberation of Kuwait City, and the Al-Assa air base, and so the Yanbu Harbor. This is my like a small Bible for this project. So yeah, feel free.
And thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for coming. And